Okay, we are back with Module 2, the Chart of Accounts in the QuickBooks Online Mastery course. And during this video, I'm going to teach you how to create a new account in your Chart of Accounts. So recall from the first video, when you initially log into QuickBooks Online, you're going to be at your home page. You're going to navigate to your transaction menu, and you're going to navigate to your Chart of Accounts. In order to create a new account, you're going to click this button up here, this new button, and you'll get a pop-up. I just want to mention this. If you pull this little arrow down, it says import, and that's if you're importing the chart of accounts from an Excel file or from another format. That can be really confusing. People get hung up on that and they're saying, I just want to create a new account. It's just saying import. No, you don't want to click on the arrow. You want to click on the word new. So when you get to this pop-up, the very first thing you're going to do is fill out the category type. And this is a really crucial decision. It's how the account type, as we discussed in video 1, is going to impact your financial report. So you really want to make sure that you're choosing the correct account type. And the most common account types you are going to work with are setting up a bank account. You'll do that during your initial setup. Setting up a credit card. A lot of times people either open new credit cards or close credit cards, so you'll use that one pretty often. Liabilities is if you open up a line of credit or get a loan. Payroll liabilities are really common. Income accounts are very common. You'll set up different types of income accounts based on your revenue stream. Cost of goods sold is really common. We talked about that in video 1. That pertains to transactions related to you manufacturing a good or selling a service. And expenses. So those are general administrative expenses, operational expenses of your business. These other ones, you may or may not use them. They're not common. So it's very rare that you'll set up an additional accounts receivable account. QuickBooks comes with a default setup. It's not so often that you're going to acquire assets in your business, fixed assets or other assets. You're very rarely going to set up an additional accounts payable account. QuickBooks Online during the setup sets up one for you. Like I said, you might touch on the current liabilities for payroll, etc. Long-term liabilities is possible. Equity will happen if you are entering money that you put into the business or you have a partner that comes on. Other income isn't common and other expenses aren't common either. So if you're looking at those, just make sure you're touching base with your accountant or your bookkeeper before you add those accounts. These ones that I'm not going to go into at length. But let's walk through the process of setting up probably the most common account type that you'll be using, because this one changes often, is an expense, right? So we have the category type is expenses. And then there's the detail type, and you can't change these. These are default in QuickBooks Online. So you have to determine what is the sort of expense that I am trying to set up, and where does it fit in this detail type? And the detail type is really set up so that QuickBooks Online can export to the major tax programs. So it does really make a difference that you actually set up the proper one. But here's a really good one. Let's say we're setting up Facebook and web ad expenses. So this would be if you paid Facebook or Twitter or banner ads or YouTube ads or ad roll, those sorts of expenses. So that's definitely going to be an advertising and promotional expense. All you would have to do from this point is click Save and Close. So let's do that. And if I scroll down, remember your chart of accounts is organized by type. That's the default way it is set up. You can sort it by name, but let's go ahead and sort it by type. And if you see here, we have Facebook and web expenses. We've added it, and it's an advertising and promotional expense. So this actually leads me to want to talk about something called parents and sub-accounts, right? So in this instance, with the automobile and fuel, you have the parent account, which is automobile, and you have fuel expenses, which is the sub-account or the child of the parent. You can think of it like an outline. So for me, one of the things I really like to use this structure because Generally, business expenses are part of a larger type of expenses, a parent. And when you see these items on your profit and loss, if they're compartmentalized, they're really easy to understand. So, for instance, Facebook and web ad expenses, that's a subcategory of advertising. So I'm actually going to go ahead and change that. And when you're setting up your chart of accounts, or you're setting up your account, you can tell QuickBooks, this Facebook and web expenses, this is actually a sub-account of advertising expenses. Now, it's not so common anymore, but let's say I'm a little bit more of a traditional type of business. I'm going to set up an additional expense account now. I'm going to say, we're going to call this print advertising. It's also an advertising and promotional expense. And I'm going to make it a sub-account of advertising. Now, I just want to show you the power of the parent and the sub-account configuration. So what I'm going to do is just quickly add a couple of different expenses in QuickBooks so you can see the impact on the reports. So let's say I spent $7,000 in Facebook advertising, and click Save and New. Print advertising, let's say I spent $2,500 on print advertising. So now when I hop on over to my profit and loss report, and I want to make sure that my period is correct, those expenses were entered for this month. So here you can see the structure that I'm talking about. Advertising is the parent, Facebook and print advertising are the child or the sub-accounts. So we can see these individual line items. Oh my God, I spent $7,000 on Facebook advertising and $2,500 on print advertising. Those sub-account amounts are really valuable to a business owner. But what they really want to know is, how much did I pay in total in advertising? Well, $9,500. That number is also really, really valuable. So when you start to set up your chart of accounts, I really want you to think about how you will set up your parent account and your sub accounts. Because like I said, travel expenses is really common. Knowing how much you spent on hotel and airfare versus travel meals can be useful. Those sorts of breakdowns are very helpful. Breaking down your professional fees can be very helpful. So we definitely want to take advantage of that super awesome feature in QuickBooks when we're setting up our chart of accounts. So that is how you set up a new account. If you want to delete an item on your chart of accounts, that's pretty easy to do as long as it's not connected to an online banking feature. You can just simply navigate to your chart of accounts, find the account, and then click the delete button. So that's how you get something off of your chart of accounts, and pretty simple. So there you have it. That's how you set up a new account. In the next video, I'm just going to run through some quick tips and a quick conclusion.